Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. It's time to take a dip into the ocean of transcendental pastimes of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Shri Krishna, in his many different manifestations. And this is the Srimad Bhagavatam, translated with commentaries by that great personality, His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. Krishna. And this is the 8th canto, and we're looking at chapter 24, Matsya, the Lord's fish incarnation. Hare Krishna. That the Lord can assume many different forms to do what he wants to do, not like the conditioned living entities who assume different forms but don't have any free will. They're simply due to a reaction to their fruitive and materialistic activities, get a suitable form. The Lord has different forms also. In this case, he's appearing as a big fish. But it's not due to his karmic reactions. It's because he has something he wants to do. Hare Krishna, Hare, he's not bound by it. He's using it, Hare Krishna, to achieve his purposes. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. So we have an account here of him appearing twice in a giant fish form. And starting here with text 10, Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Krishna Chaitanya. Tatra Raja Rishi Kaschin, Namna Satya Vrato Mahan, Narayana Paro Tapat, Tapasa, Sali, Lasana. During the Chakshusha Manvantar, there was a great king named Satyavrata, who was a devotee of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Satyavrata performed austerities by subsisting only on water. So that was in a previous millennium, and millennium, Lord Brahma's day and night, when he takes rest at night, his day is like a whole millennium. It's I believe, calculated something like 1,000 yuga cycles. So that's a millennium. So in a previous day of Lord Brahma, King Satyavrata was present there and was a devotee of the Supreme Lord. He was a king, and he was performing austerities by subsisting only on water in the previous day of Lord Brahma to the one we're in now. Prabhupada, the Lord assumed one fish incarnation to save the Vedas at the beginning of the Swayambhuva Manvantar. And at the end of the Chakshusha Manvantar, the Lord again assumed the form of a fish just to favor the great king named Satyavrata. As there were two incarnations of Varaha, there were also two incarnations of fish. The Lord appeared as one fish incarnation to save the Vedas by killing Hayagriva, who tried to steal the Vedas when Lord Brahma was dozing off. And he assumed the other fish incarnation to show favor to King Satyavrata. So the Lord appears to protect his devotees, show them favor, to deliver them. So this fish incarnation appeared in order to show favor to King Satyavrata. Yo savasmin mahakalpe tanaya sa vivasvata Shradadeva iti kyato manutve harinar pita. In this, the present millennium, King Satyavrata became the son of Diviswan, the king of the sun planet, and was known as Shradadeva. By the mercy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, he was given the post of Manu. So that's a very powerful administrative position within the universal government, Manu. Ekada Kritamalayam Kurvato Jalatarpanam Tasyan Jalyu Dake Kachit Chapar Yeka Yapad Yata. One day, while King Satyavrata was performing austerities by offering water on the bank of the river Kritamala, a small fish appeared in the water of his palms. So he's offering water. He's taking water from the river and offering it back to the river. And when he scooped up in his palms to offer, there was a little fish in the water in his palms. Satyavrato Jali Gatam Sahatayena Bharata Utsa Sarja Naditoye Saparim Dravideshvara. Satyavrata, the king of Dravidadesh, threw the fish into the water of the river along with the water in his palm. O King Parikshit, descendant of Bharata. So he scooped it up, there's a little fish, and he put it back in the river. He threw the fish and the water. It's a little different than offering. You don't throw it, you offer it. So he didn't offer that water, he just threw the fish back in there. Because he wanted the water, he didn't want a fish. So he threw the fish and the water back. With Tamaha Satikarunam Mahakarnu Karunikam Nripam Yadobhyad Yati Jatibhyo Dinamam Dina Vatsala Katam Vishrajase Rajan Vitamasmin Sari Jale. With an appealing voice, the poor small fish said to King Satyavrata, who was very merciful, "My dear king, protector of the poor, why are you throwing me in the water of the river where there are other aquatics who can kill me? I'm very much afraid of them." Prabhupada. In the Matsya Purana it is said, the Supreme Personality of Godhead possesses unlimited potency. Nonetheless, in his pastime in the form of a fish, he begged protection from King Satyavrata. So the personality of Godhead, he possesses unlimited potency, But in this pastime, he's asking for protection from King Satyavrata. Tamatmano nugrahatam pritya matsya vapudaram ajanam ra shanartaya saparya sa manodade. To please himself, King Satyavrata, not knowing that the fish was the Supreme Personality of Godhead, decided with great pleasure to give the fish protection. So the king wanted to give protection to the little fish just to make himself happy, because as a king, they give protection to all the different, somebody comes to take shelter of the king, he gives protection. So it made him feel good to protect this little fish. That was what happened to Maharaj Bharata in the forest when he saw the baby deer drowning in the river. He wanted to give protection because it made him feel good, because that was his nature as a pious, saintly king, was to give protection to others, like a father does for their children. So his heart was touched by this little creature who says, please protect me. Prabhupada, here's an example of giving service to the Supreme Personality of Godhead even without knowledge. Such service is called Agyata Sukriti. King Satyavrata wanted to show his own mercy, not knowing that the fish was Lord Vishnu. By such unknowing devotional service, one is favored by the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Service rendered to the Supreme Lord, knowingly or unknowingly, never goes in vain. It's like sometimes you're out, in the public, and you have some opportunity. You say to them, like I had that happen in. I had to go to the doctor's office. Just nothing really, but I had to go, and the attendant there, very friendly and outgoing, and I was chanting japa. So then I was telling her little things about the chanting, and she was listening. And then I said, can you say Hare Krishna? Let me hear you. And she went very nicely, Hare Krishna. So that's unknowingly, not really knowing that Krishna is just like he was incarnated as this fish form. He's also incarnated now in the holy name. So when people, even if they don't know what they're saying, they don't have to. I mean, it's nice if you do. But even if they don't, service rendered to the Supreme Lord, knowingly or unknowingly, never goes in vain. So here, King Satyavrata didn't know that this little fish was actually a manifestation of the personality of Godhead to deliver him, really. But he didn't know. But he rendered service. Jambavan also, when he had the Shamantaka jewel, and Krishna was trying to find the jewel and encountered him in the cave where Jambavan was living in the forest, and they were fighting. And Jambavan didn't know who he was fighting with. He just was fighting with someone who was trying to take this. He'd given it to his son as a toy, his child. He gave it as a toy. And he didn't want somebody breaking into where he lived, taking something that he'd given to his child. Who are you? He started fighting with him. He was an intruder. And they fought for days and days and days until he realized that who he was fighting with was the Supreme Personality of Godhead in that form, as Sri Krishna had appeared as Krishna. His original form, Krishna. So here, Satyavrata, he's trying to give protection to this little fish because it's his nature to do that, and he doesn't even know that it's an incarnation is appearing. Hare Krishna. Tasya dinataram bhakyam ashrucha samahipati kala sapshu nidhainainam dayurninya ashramam. The merciful king, being moved by the pitiable words of the fish, placed the fish in a water jug and brought him to his own residence. Like people keep a little fish, like a little goldfish in a bowl. So he had like a little, he made the water jug like an aquarium. So now he had a fish in a jug. He brought him to where he lived. Satu tatraika rachena vardhamana kamandalo alabadvat mavaksh kashamba idam iha mahipatim. But in one night, that fish grew so much that he could not move his body comfortably in the water of the pot. He then spoke to the king as follows. Naham kamandalavashmin kritram vastu ihotsahe kala payoka suvi pulam yatraham nivase shukam. My dear king, I do not like living in this water pot with such great difficulty. Please, therefore, find some better reservoir of water where I can live comfortably. So first the fish was, I'm afraid I'm in a dangerous place. Please protect me. So, okay, he's rendering service, put you in a little pot with some water. And now he's expanded, too big for the jug. Now he's saying, please find a better reservoir of water where I can be more comfortable. He's engaging him in service. Sa enam tata adaya neadad odad chadodake tatra chita merhertena hastatrayam avardata. Then, taking the fish out of the water pot, the king threw him in a large well. But within a moment, the fish developed to the length of 3 cubits. So he's going, in a very short period of time, from a tiny fish in the palm of Satyavrata's hand into the water pot. Too big for the water pot. Puts him in a well, a large well. But then he grew to be the length of 3 cubits. So 1 cubit, I'm looking it up here, is 1.5 feet. So 3 cubits is 4.5 feet. So the fish got like 4.5 feet. I'm about 5 feet tall, so you got a good sized fish, like a barracuda or a tuna or something. Good size. He wasn't a minnow anymore. He was a decent sized fish. Nama etad alam rajan sukam vastum udan chanam pitu dehi padam mayam yatvaham saranam gata. The fish then said, my dear king, this reservoir of water is not fit for my happy residence. Please give me a more extensive pool of water, for I have taken shelter of you. So he was in the well. He's saying, now the well is too small. Find me something bigger. Tata adaya saragna shita rajan sarovare tada vikyatmana soyam maha mino navardata. O Maharaj Parikshit, this is Sukadeva Goswami talking to Maharaj Parikshit. He said, O Maharaj Parikshit, the king took the fish from the well and threw him in a lake. But the fish then assumed a gigantic form, exceeding the extent of the water. So this is like way bigger than a whale. I mean, he's this giant fish form. It's too big for the lake. Naitan Mesvat Saye Rajan Udakam Salilo Kasha Nidhe Hiraksha Yogena Rade Mam Avidasini. The fish then said, O king, I'm a large aquatic, and this water is not at all suitable for me. Now, kindly find some way to save me. It would be better to put me in the water of a lake that will never reduce. This is where I'd really like to know. I mean, I can see how you take a teeny tiny fish and you put him in a jug of water. And then I can see how it gets a little bit bigger, you put him in a well. And I can even see taking a barracuda-sized fish, almost 5 feet long, and transporting him into a lake. I can see all of that. But when this fish gets bigger than the lake, how do you transport him? I wish it's probably explained somewhere in the Vedas. On the higher planets, they have more extensive Bhagavatam. We kind of have, we have 12 cantos. They have lots and lots of cantos up there. Hare Krishna. I mean, that would be the only reason for a devotee to want to go to the higher planets, is simply because there's more Bhagavatam. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. O king, I'm a large aquatic. This water is not suitable at all for me. Now, kindly find some way to save me. It would be better to put me in the water of a lake that will never reduce. Iti yukta so nayan matsyam tatra tra vita sini jalasaye samahitam tam samudre prakshipad jasam. When thus requested, King Satyavrata took the fish to the largest reservoir of water, but then that also proved insufficient. The king at last threw the gigantic fish into the ocean. I'd still like to know how he did that. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. I have some other questions too, like about Jambavati, what were her bodily, she's the daughter of the king of the gorillas, what was her, and she married Krishna, what were her bodily features like? I just want to know these things. Shipyamanastam ahidam ihamam makaradaya adyanti bala vira mam nehod shrastam arhasi. While being thrown in the ocean, you'll notice there's no purports on these verses, it's just action, what's going on, there's no purports. While being thrown in the ocean, the fish said to the king Satyavrata, O hero, in this water there are very powerful and dangerous sharks that will eat me. Therefore you should not throw me in this place. Material world, there's no material solution for any difficulties in the material world. The pot is too small, the well is too small, the lake is too small, the bigger lake is too small, even the ocean is too small, materially. There's no material solution to protect the fish. There's no material solution. Evam vimohitas tena vadata vagru valgu bharatim tam ahoko bhavanashmin Matsya rupena mohayan. After hearing these sweet words from the Supreme Personality of Godhead in the form of a fish, the king, being bewildered, asked him, Who are you, sir? You simply bewilder us. Naivam aha. Who are you? In other words, up to this point, King Satyavrata is just dealing with this entity in terms of a material calculation. Oh, it's a living entity in a fish body and it needs protection. But it's not. It's the Supreme Personality of Godhead assuming the form of a fish. So finally he's asking the questions. He said, who are you, sir? You simply bewilder us. Naivam viryo jila charo Christo sama bishruti piba Yo bhavan yojana satam Abna vibhyanase sara. My Lord, in one day you have expanded yourself for hundreds of miles, covering the water of the river and the ocean. Before this I had never seen or heard of such an aquatic animal. Nunam tram bhagavan shakshat darir narayano vyaha anugrahaya bhutanam datse rupam jalo kasham. My Lord, you are certainly the inexhaustible Supreme Personality of Godhead Narayan, Sri Hari. Krishna, Krishna, time I am, Krishna. My Lord, you are certainly the inexhaustible Supreme Personality of Godhead Narayan Sri Hari. It is to show your mercy to the living entities that you have now assumed the form of an aquatic. So that verse could actually read something like this. My Lord, you are certainly the inexhaustible Supreme Personality of Godhead Narayan Sri Hari. It is to show your mercy to the living entities that you have now assumed the form of the holy name, the Maha Mantra. Hare Krishna. This fish incarnation is exhibiting his expansion, how the Lord expands. Teeny tiny, and then bigger than the biggest, small, and then bigger than the biggest. So the holy name is like that also, because the holy name is an incarnation of Krishna, and he also has that expanding potency. And as one devotee told me one time, said, the holy name's been let loose on the planet. So it is to show your mercy to living entities. You have now assumed the form of an aquatic, but it is also your mercy to show to the living entities, to show your mercy, you have assumed the form of your holy name, the holy name. Non-different from Krishna. Krishna is Krishna. Hare Krishna. We may not get it right away, just like Satyavrata. It was the personality of Godhead, but he was dealing with that form. He was engaging in service, but not in full knowledge. He was engaging according to his natural propensity. The Lord was engaging him according to the king's natural propensity to protect and take care of and have that fatherly mood toward everyone. He's the king. Except for his wife. That's a little different mood. But he has that attitude toward to give shelter and protection. The Lord was engaging him according to that natural propensity. And without knowledge of who this was, he was rendering service. But he did eventually realize, who are you? You do these miraculous things. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. Namaste Purusha Shrestha Stityutpati Paya Yeshvara Bhaktanamna Prapananam Mukyo Yatma Katir Vibho. O my Lord, Master of creation, maintenance and annihilation, O best of the enjoyers, Lord Vishnu, you are the leader and destination of surrendered souls like us. Therefore, let me offer my respectful obeisances unto you. So, we see this when a devotee has some realization, comes in contact with the personality of Godhead in one way or another, and they have wonderful realizations, they offer prayers. So these are some of King Satyavrata's prayers. Sarve Lilavataraste Muktanam Bhutihetava Natum Icham Yadorupam Yadartamba Vatadritam. All your pastimes and incarnations certainly appear for the welfare of all living entities. Therefore, my Lord, I wish to know the purpose for which you have assumed this form of a fish. Okay, the meter of the verses changes here. It's been a really simple Sanskrit meter. The meter's changed. Let me see if I can get it. Nate Ravin Daksha Pado Pasarpanam Misha Bhavet Sarvasuri Pritatmana Yate Tara Shedam Pritag Atmanam Satam Advisho Yadvipur Adbhutam Hina. Not quite right, but O my Lord, possessing eyes like the petals of a lotus, the worship of the demigods who are in the bodily concept of life is fruitless in all respects. But because you are the supreme friend and dearmost supersoul of everyone, worship of your lotus feet is never useless. You have therefore manifested your form as a fish. So, to worship the demigods is usually done to get material enhancements for material enjoyment. You want material things. But the worship of the personality of Godhead, and that's ultimately useless. Hare Krishna. Govinda. Hare Krishna. Jocelyn. Hare Krishna. Just reading about Krishna's manifestation as a giant fish. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. Nothing fishy about this. Well, Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. Prabhupada's purport. The demigods like Indra, Chandra, Surya are ordinary living entities who are differentiated parts and parcels of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Okay, so the demigods, they're the ordinary living entities. They're powerful in the affairs of universal management, just like the government, people in the government, presidents, prime ministers, they're powerful in governmental affairs. Well, demigods are powerful in universal affairs. but they're parts and parcels of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The Lord expands himself through the living beings. Nityo Nityanam Chaitanas Chaitananam. His personal Vishnu forms, which are all spiritual, are called Svamsa. And the living entities who are differentiated parts are called Vibhanamsa. So he expands himself in two ways. Personally, he incarnates, he expands, and it's him taking different forms and functions to do things. But then he expands in another way also as parts and parcels. And those are called Vibhanamsa, and that's us. We're part of God, we're part of Krishna, but we're the expanded parts. And we always remain distinct, individual entities. We never become Krishna. Krishna's always Krishna, we're always the parts and parcels. Hare Krishna. Some parts and parcels don't like that idea, they want to become Krishna, and then Krishna makes some arrangement where, okay, go act out your fantasies. He makes Fantasy Island, which is the material world, is like Fantasy Island in the spiritual sky. All right, go in Fantasy Island. Yeah, so it's like, Hare Krishna. Some of the Vibhanamsa forms are spiritual, and some are a combination of matter and spirit. So the parts and parcels, some are eternally liberated. They're always spiritual, they're not in touch with the material nature, they have no attraction for it. They're still parts and parcels, but they have no involvement with Fantasy Island. And some are a combination of matter and spirit. Some are contaminated. They've come in contact with the external energy, and they're going for a ride in the material world. The conditioned souls in the material world are different from the external bodies made of material energy. Yeah, you want to go to Fantasy Island, you got to get the right kind of body to hang out there. Thus, the demigods living in the upper planetary systems and the living entities living in the lower planetary system are of the same nature, conditioned souls, in contact with the material energy. They're all hanging out in Fantasy Island, some on higher planets, some on lower planets, but they all have that mixture. Nonetheless, those living as human beings on this planet are sometimes attracted to worshiping the demigods in the higher planetary systems. Oh, it's like the grass is always greener, There's all conditioned souls, but they see, wow, look what goes on in that part of the fantasy. That's more, I like what's going on, so they attracted to try to enjoy more. But it's all the illusory energy. Such worship is temporary, as the human beings on this planet have to change their bodies. Living beings on this planet have to change their bodies. Tata dihan jara prapti. The living entities known as Indra, Chandra, Varuna, and so on will also have to change their bodies in due course of time. I wonder what happens to them. They're devotees and they're engaging in service by managing the water, the air, the sunlight. They're managing all. They're the utility company. But what happens to those demigods when they leave their bodies? It says they have to change their bodies. Do they go back home? Wonder where they go. Another question. As stated in Bhagavad Gita, Antavanta Palam Tesham Tad Bhavat Yalpamedasam. Translation. Men of small intelligence worship the demigods, and their fruits are limited and temporary. Kamaistastai rita jana, kapadinte na devata. Those who do not know the position of the demigods are inclined to worship the demigods for some material purpose. But the results of such worship are never permanent. Consequently, here it is said, I heard one devotee was giving a class one time, and they were saying, the demigods are like, if you go to them, they can give you a roll of toilet paper, they can give you a towel, they can give you things that try to make your life more workable and manageable in the material world. But they can't give you liberation, but they can give you stuff. Oh, you need a roll of toilet paper? Here you go, a roll of toilet paper. Krishna. Yeah, it's like, but they can't give you liberation. Just material things. And it's not permanent. Whatever is received from that kind of worship doesn't last. Consequently, here it is said, if one is to worship someone else, he must worship the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Then his worship will never be fruitless. If one must worship someone else, if one must worship someone else, well, how do you understand that? It says, if one is to worship someone else, he must worship the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Then his worship will never be fruitless. Swapam apyasya dharmasya trayate mahatovayat. Even a slight attempt to worship the Supreme Personality of Godhead is a permanent asset. Therefore, as recommended in Srimad Bhagavatam, Chattva Swadharmam Charanambujam Hare, one should take to the worship of the lotus feet of Hari, even if this means giving up so-called occupational duty assigned because of the particular body one has accepted. Because worship in terms of the body is temporary, it does not bear any permanent fruit. But worship of the Supreme Personality of Godhead gives immense benefit. Yeah, so even if one performs their duties perfectly, it really doesn't have any permanent effect if it's not aimed at pleasing Krishna. That was Arjuna's dilemma, is that if I perform my duties perfectly and I fight this battle, I don't get anything permanent. I get a kingdom or I go to the heavenly planets, who cares? And that's if I do my duty. I don't want to do it just for some, because those are temporary material things, even the higher planets, or a kingdom on this earth. He says, so what are those things? I don't want those things. And that's if I do my duty perfectly and fight like I'm supposed to. Then Krishna explained, well, this is do this as service to me. I have something I need to get done on the planet right now. There's a lot of unwholesome characters in high positions disturbing everyone else. I want to get them removed, so they're going to be removed. So I'm asking you to be an instrument in the fight and serve me, because this is what I want, it's my desire. So then if he does his service. He does his duty and acts as a soldier. Then that's different. Worship in terms of the body is temporary. Just to do the duty in life is temporary, even if you're elevated to the heavenly planets because you did so many pious, wonderful things to help everybody. I was just reading that yesterday in another one of Prabhupada's books, that he talks about that too. Even if someone does so much on a material plane, opens hospitals, all these things, without Krishna consciousness, the results of it are temporary for everybody, for the people that receive the benefit, as well as the person who's doing all this charitable stuff. It's all temporary, ultimately, without Krishna. I think that's, when you look at the teachings of Jesus, it's not by works alone. It's not by works alone to attain the kingdom of God. But then, on the other side of that, it's in the Gita, Krishna says, what good is it to light no fire and do no work? It's not you sit around and do nothing. So it's a fine line. And Krishna is what makes sense out of it all. To act in Krishna consciousness. It's not inactivity, and it's not fruit of activity, it's action in Krishna consciousness. Arjuna is the perfect example of that. So, King Satyavrata is offering some prayers to Krishna, and the Supreme Personality of Godhead is going to reply to him. Hare Krishna. 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 Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Ram Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Ram Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Ram Rama, Hare Hare. Krishna Chaitanya.